and you start 10, 11 years old, thrust upon you by mom.
Yep. Played in Asia and Korea, played in Japan, played in all of South Central America. I mean, I never thought I would know so many high net worth people in my life. Coming from a pretty humble, beginning with my last suit I wore coming back from tennis was my high school prom suit. So I literally called all my friends, tried to figure out, can I borrow a suit? Can I do this? Couldn't find anything. So I literally safety pinned that suit together and went to this interview and got the job.
Like, how does that go through that thought process?
Famous Bruce Lee saying is be like water.
Yeah.
So my environment changed. I had to change with it. Gained quite a few contracts in a short time, following a model and being a pretty good networker. And then after that, COVID hit. Had to put the big boy pants on and go clean toilets. You better believe it.
Okay.
Go clean toilets.
All right, man.
1 o'clock in the morning.
No, I used to be rubbing elbows with CEOs, but now I'm scrubbing.
I don't think there's really anything beneath me. If I have to do something for the business, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I was the owner. I had the responsibility. So if the employee didn't show up, who's going to do it?
Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
You had to do it.
Yep. So I've never had that thought of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this.
It's one of those things where, like in my business, you never ask somebody to do something you wouldn't be willing to do yourself. So if you're asking people to clean toilets, you got to be able to be willing to do it yourself.
When we launched this, we were really hoping to take off because we knew we made a great quality product. I don't know one person that has taken our product and was like,
you have NFL players and pro athletes using your stuff right now. What's the takeaway on that regard for you as you reflect on where you've been so far?
And I remember reading something. Luck is only being able to be ready for the opportunity given to you.
Yo, what's up, everybody? This is the End-to-End Podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Yun Win, also known as Ninja or Prolific Ninja by my family and friends. And because you all, my listeners, are my friends, you can call me Ninja too. This is the End-to-End Podcast, the alpha to the omega, the beginning to the end, talking about life, motivation, drive, success, self-improvement, and offering you morsels in this all-you-can-eat buffet called life. Back in the studio, it's really good to get here. I've been doing a whirlwind travel junket on PFAS. About to leave again this coming up week, talking to a bunch of lawyers. So we're trying to sneak one in here so that we do not lose the momentum on 3 years straight every week, having a good episode for you. So, but before we get into this specific episode, which is going to be a treat, we have to talk about the value exchange here. So, if you're new to the podcast, you're new to me. I'm a physician, lawyer, business guy, some degree of success, some would say. But the one thing about all of this is that I'm always grateful. So if you're new to the show, every day I wake up, before I open, when I open my eyes, the first thing I do is thank God and the universe for another opportunity to hopefully do something great and hopefully inspire somebody to live to their fullest controllable potential. And with that, before we start the episode, I want to thank you all for liking, following, commenting, sharing, especially sharing the shorts and the full-length episodes. We don't grow this show without you. I come out of my own pocket, produce this show, bring this content for free. And so the way we do this is on a karmic exchange, which means if you find value out of this show or any of my other shows or episodes, please share the show. That's your karmic exchange to me, so you don't owe me a debt. I don't want you to be reincarnated as a toad or something for not sharing the show, right? So please do share the show. And I like to say, if you're knowledge swole, share the show. That is how I need you all. That's how we grow. So, most of my podcast is a 10, 15-minute monologue on some type of topic around success or self-improvement or just some thought-provoking ideas to get you to your goals. And we also do sometimes prolific POV, point of view on current events, or prolific Q&A, just question and answer on, success topics. The last format that we do is when we bring on a guest. And today is one of those episodes where it's a very special episode where I have a very, very special guest. So many of y'all know, or if you follow me on Instagram or my socials, my personal, which is Prolific Ninja, The Prolific Ninja on IG, I drive an exotic car, supercars, and part of the benefit is you get to join car groups. And within that, you get to network and meet other car enthusiasts, which is where I met Syd. Syd is a serial entrepreneur, and you'll get to learn that he was a world-ranked tennis player as a youth all the way through college, and how in this episode we're going to talk about how that sports experience, that networking, launched his career into the hedge fund, venture capital, now CEO world. But Syd drives a Porsche Turbo, 911 Turbo, and that's how we met. So Syd, welcome to the show, man. Good to see you.
Good to
see you.
Be on the show.
Yeah. So talk to us, man. We meet actually at a house opening. So part of the network, right, was somebody, a professional athlete, was selling their multi-million-dollar mansion. Wanted to have cars pull up. We pull up, and that's how we originally met, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
And before we get into your growth and development into the hedge fund world and all that, talk to me about your growing up. Like, where did it all start?
Well, grew up here in Houston, Texas, really in Sugar Land. Didn't play tennis till a little bit later, so 10, 11 years old, started to pick up a racket. But my mom played tennis at SMU and then Magny State, so big tennis family.
Okay.
Brother played tennis as well,
Okay.
Younger brother, and then kind of excelled through that and was originally wanted to go to school out of state, but my parents were like, hey, you should try applying to Rice.
Yeah.
So ended up getting into Rice, got a partial scholarship to play on the men's varsity team. So played there, and then actually quit for a little while due to some injuries.
Yeah.
Had some pretty significant injuries end of my junior career.
Okay.
Which set me back. Went from, I don't know if you're tennis players, you'll know, going from a two-handed backhand to a one-handed backhand is a completely different game. So, just being able to kind of reinvent the type of style of game you have, kind of like the same thing in life. If something happens, you got to reinvent yourself in a certain way to succeed.
Okay.
So did okay, but very quickly realized that the tour is a much tougher grind than most people pointed out to be.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Before you go further, because that's a whole life in like 2 minutes, man. So we're going to unpack that a little bit.
Sure.
Grew up in Sugar Land, and so if you don't know the area, that's a suburb southwest of Houston.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
A largely immigrant kind of community-ish.
Yeah, I would say so.
Asian, Indian.
Indian community, pretty large in that area.
And so your mom played collegiate tennis.
Correct.
Division I.
Mm-hmm.
Father athletic at all?
Yeah, he is. Funny story. He played soccer and hockey. He was a hockey goalie out of Hong Kong.
Okay. I didn't even know they had hockey in Hong Kong,
I didn't
bro.
either. But he went to school in Boston.
Okay.
So both my parents were university here in one Boston. Then my mom grew up here in SMU. Yeah.
And did your mom say, Syd, play tennis, or how? Like
right. So my dad's never played tennis. So their love story, it goes, is my dad's never played tennis before. Found out my mom was a huge tennis player, so he learned to play tennis to impress my mom's family.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So what we do for love, man.
Yep.
Shit.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then, I played when I first started playing sports. It was soccer, then baseball, and then once I reached a certain age, it was like, you're playing tennis.
Huh, okay.
Yeah,
So generally athletic parents.
Yeah.
But you were never like, tennis is the sport.
No. Usually those higher, the top ranked players, they start 3-4 years old.
Correct.
There's only a few players like Robbie Jennifer that started at, probably 11, 12 years old. So it's a late start at that age. Normally now when you get into a sport, it's 2 or 3.
Okay. And you start 10, 11 years old, thrust upon you by mom.
Yep.
Obviously, you don't really know your feelings or have mature feelings, but sort of you just kind of took it in hand.
Yeah,
Literally took it in hand.
I played a tennis tournament, and it was back then. Tens was round robin. And
what does that mean? Not
so
a tennis.
So usually brackets are like playoffs, right? So you have the bracketed play. When you're in that age division, there's like 6 people to a group, and you play every single person. And out of that group, then you move forward.
Got it.
So that's how it was. I remember my first match I ever played. I played this kid named, not kid then, Miloš Gadzowski. He was like top 2, maybe number 1 or something at some point in tens in the country. and I took one game off him.
What does that mean?
That means so a set is to 6 if it's a standard set.
Yeah.
And I took one game, so I lost 6-1.
Okay.
But I've only been playing tennis for a few months.
Oh, wow.
And I took a game off somebody that's top ranked in the country.
Yeah. Wow.
And at that point I was like, oh, maybe I could do this. So so then I, as I progressed, I got pretty well ranked, made it to nationals in 12s.
So 2-year progression.
Right.
What was those 2 years? Was it grind, day
it
in,
was
day
grind.
out, day in? Mom was like,
right.
you're going.
6 days a week. Yep. 6 days a week practice and 1 day break. That's the way it goes.
And how long was the practice?
Probably on a light day, 2 hours. On a heavy day, 4 to 5 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about school?
Well, that's after school.
That's crazy. So.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an Asian thing or whatever, obviously.
And then Kumon.
yeah. Well, I'm saying, no, I'm just saying I don't know if it's an Asian thing, but you didn't like, oh, screw this, Mom. Like, you just accepted it.
Oh, no, I think part of it was, part of it, you're like, luckily I didn't really have.
And for those of y'all on audio only, Syd is Asian.
Yes, I'm from Hong Kong. My parents are from Hong Kong, but my mom's side of the family, Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong. So, and my dad's mainland China and Hong Kong. So
yeah, okay. So I just want to make sure the audience knew that aren't watching on YouTube. Okay, so daily grind 3 to 6 hours a day, 6 days a week. Did that wear on you as a young boy? Like I'm missing out on other things 10 to 12-year-old kids are being able to do.
It's interesting to think about, right? Because growing up, I didn't have that many friends growing up. So it was kind of easy to say, oh, this is something that I could potentially be good at. So not having that distraction realistically kind of kept me in my head in the game saying, well, I don't have as much time as somebody that started at 3 years old. So I have to put in the time now.
Okay.
So I kind of had that right from the get-go.
Forward thinking-ish. Okay.
Yeah. And then from that point, it was then when you start to win, that does another mental aerobic for you, right? So you start to win, you not necessarily know how to lose at that point. So when you start winning without much training, and then you don't have much loss, you don't really know how to mentally prepare for that. So when I did lose, it was like mental breakdown.
Really?
It was like
at that age or later?
At that age.
Okay.
This is not a proud thing, but I probably broke 15 to 20 rackets by the time I was 13, 14 years old.
That's crazy.
So the amount of pressure, self-pressure you put on yourself is like you strive for perfection. Tennis is not a professional sport. Roger Federer said it best not too long ago. He said, I only won 51, 52% of the points I've won. So that means to be that successful, you're not perfect. But growing up, you strive for the perfection.
Yeah.
So you get pretty hard on yourself, and then the tantrums come and racket
John
throwing.
McEnroe.
Oh, yeah. It was a
Wow.
lot of that. I'll definitely say, it was it took me a while to get over that, and it didn't, and some people don't ever get over that.
So was that projection a projection for perfection self-imposed because you wanted to live up to your parents' expectations for you, or was that a self-expectation of perfection?
That was self. Absolutely.
So your parents
self.
didn't care?
I wouldn't say they don't care, but I would definitely say that they were more than accepting as long as the effort was there.
Okay.
But the strive for perfection, that's driven from myself,
Okay.
probably from the start.
Fair. And do you think that, and we'll get into your adult life and your career, that perfection is a lot of successful entrepreneurs I know, they understand that you're not going to get perfection, but you're striving for it.
Yep.
Is that a learned thought, or is that just something you're born with? In your mind?
Well, man, that's definitely learned.
Okay.
I think it's learned because of the experiences you have. You realize as you mature and get older that it's impossible to be perfect.
Okay.
So being that hard on yourself just kind of brings a source of misery to begin, right? It's like if you're always that hard, you're never going to be satisfied, even though that's not necessarily a bad thing, but the mental anguish you put on yourself, that to me is a bad thing.
Especially at 12 years old, 10, 13, 14
exactly.
years old. Yeah. So on the one extreme, you're elated when you win,
Mm-hmm.
and any slight deviation, you're breaking rackets.
Oh, yeah.
But to your credit, though, that attitude got you as high as what rank at what age?
So I think in juniors, the 16 and unders, I was top 5, I think, in the U.S., and then through that played a few international tournaments and was just above 400 in the ITF
in
juniors.
the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy. And again, all the while you're kind of bypassing a quote normal,
absolutely,
teenage set of years, right?
Right.
Like you're traveling the world at 16 when your friends are getting their cars,
right,
or dating or whatever.
Yeah, even going further than that, you're talking about your education, right? So, I went to a public school. I went to Kempner High School. And missing so much school to go play these tournaments, because these tournaments, the nationals, they're a week long. They're not a weekend. The state tournaments are a weekend, but a lot of times the finals finish on Monday. So you're missing those days. So I had to actually appeal. My parents and we had to appeal to the Fort Bend County State Board, the academic board, to stay in school because they were expelling me for missing too many days.
Oh, wow, dude.
Yeah.
Wow. And that was your parents sticking up for. At this point, are you having a dream of going pro, or what was the end result? Like, what was the drive other than I hate to lose?
Well, that's a pretty good driver, to be honest.
Of course.
But I did at some point, like right around my 15, 16s year. That was probably my best year before I got a left wrist injury that kind of destroyed my end of my junior career. But I would say probably 16, I was thinking about going pro. Obviously, having Asian parents, that was not the direction. They were like, use this tool to get into a really good school. I personally wanted to go to Pepperdine in Malibu Beach, California.
Yeah, of course.
But
dude.
they were like,
yeah,
you're going to. So I actually applied, almost went to Yale instead of Rice, but I couldn't handle the cold.
Yeah.
There was a couple other schools like that were good tennis schools that I was potentially going to, but ended up staying at Rice because one, close to home, and the other piece is, academically, they speak for themselves.
So despite missing all the school, you had good, strong academics to get into the Ivy League, obviously.
That's right.
And how much of that was sport versus academic?
Well, at Rice, it's academic.
Right.
You have to get into the school before they really recruit you.
Well, that's any sport, right? So like Nate, my son, getting into, we show funny story about him is, the Johns Hopkins coach was interested for Nate to potentially play there. First question out the gate, what's your SAT? Nate's like, whatever, 12 something. And he says, that's going to be a problem because the average is 14, whatever, 75.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So he couldn't even get into the school, much less try to play for the team, right? So grades matter if you're a student athlete. Grades really do matter.
Yeah, even at Rice, I didn't do that great there. I didn't listen to my counselor. I took 21 hours my freshman semester.
That's too much. Yeah.
I thought, I was like, I'm only in class this amount of time. Maybe I could just add classes, get done faster.
Correct.
And I didn't listen to the counselor. I don't know how I actually achieved being able to add the classes, but I did.
Yeah.
Didn't do very well.
And then being a student athlete as well.
Right.
Okay. So before we get into that,
yeah,
your junior pro career, junior tennis career.
Yeah.
You're traveling the world.
Not yet, really.
Okay.
There's international tournaments, ITF tournaments here. The ITF is the kind of like the overall international governing body at the time when I was playing.
Yeah.
Now there's a bunch of, well, not a bunch, maybe one more new organization that's like another rating system. But I'm not that close with tennis anymore, so I don't know too much about it. But yeah, so typically in the U.S., there was the USTA, which is the organization that puts on all the tournaments within the U.S. And then there's ITF tournaments or ITF juniors, which is like Orange Bowl, stuff like that.
Okay. So then you end up at Rice, partial division scholarship at a Division I school,
right?
Which is fantastic, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to go Division I. Take us from there. And kind of bridge us into, all the,
So initially when I got there, I had lost my two-handed backhand to turned to one-hander, and they wanted me to redshirt my first year. Obviously, coming off my ego, being top in the U.S. as a junior, I didn't want to redshirt my first year because number one, I didn't really think about the overall strategy behind being a little older, a little bit more muscle on you and stuff like that. I didn't really think about that at the time.
So redshirt means you're on the roster, but you're not playing, so it doesn't count against your eligibility.
Eligibility. Yeah,
okay.
That's right.
So what? I'm not a tennis player.
Mm-hmm.
What is the difference between? And I'm sure many of our audience don't play tennis either. Mm-hmm. The difference between a two-handed backhand and a one-handed backhand.
So I guess the most important word you would say.
And what is
leverage.
a backhand? A backhand is
your
non-dominant side.
Your non-dominant side. That's correct.
Okay. And you're trying to return the ball.
Right. So leverage is probably the easiest way to explain it. With one hand being your non-dominant side, you have to use more back strength. So one hand versus two hands, you have leverage with your left hand, so you can hit the ball more aggressively when it's higher. And through the evolution of tennis, the ball is starting to bounce higher because of the spin and the equipment and so forth. Back in the day, it was a very continental, so very, I would say the grip is kind of like the racket would be more perpendicular with the ground.
Okay.
So it's flatter, so the ball doesn't bounce as high. But through the evolution of the sport, more spin, different grip, like a semi-Western to Western grip, the ball now has a lot of top spin, which accelerates the ball after the bounce. But it also bounces higher. So on a forehand, you have all the leverage because you use more chest muscles. You can bring the ball, and arm delt muscles bring the ball down. In a backhand, you only got your shoulders and maybe your legs, torso, and just like everything else. But you don't have the leverage. So typically, it's a much more defensive play if you're catching the ball higher.
Okay.
So that changes your game to, let's say, a player like Agassi who stays on the baseline, and a player that's like Nadal who's hitting the ball 15 feet, not 15 feet, but 5 to 7 feet behind the baseline. So it's a different style of game. And being able to do that, if you watch, the greats play, they pick on the one-handed backhand. So going into playing Division I college, having a less than 3-month-old backhand, I got picked on quite a bit. So going from...
And they were telling you to do this?
Well, I had to because of the injury.
Oh, got it.
Yeah,
okay,
so I went to a one-handed backhand.
Injury?
So I had a left wrist injury.
Okay.
Did all sorts of hand specialists, did bone scans, did your typical shots, and so forth. Wasn't bad enough.
A major injury.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So how did that, your mindset, your frame of mind, did that set you back? You're like, oh fuck, I'm fucked, or kind of what or like this? It is what it is. I got to deal with it. Kind of what was that?
That was probably what it was. It was. I'm a pretty confident person, so I thought my skill level, I would be able to maneuver around having such a new backhand. I had a great slice backhand, so that's a one-handed. Even if you're playing two, typically you're a one-handed slice. So I kind of fell back on that.
So a slice backhand is you hit the ball and it curves.
Goes. It's under. No, it's just a backspin versus top spin. Right?
Got it. Okay.
You could put some curve right to left to it on either, but typically it's underspin.
Okay.
But that's a much more defensive play. So that's like strategic. So now instead of consistently hitting the ball where the ball bounces higher, now you're trying to keep the ball down low, because higher ball, somebody can attack you and be more aggressive. A low ball, you can't.
Right.
So because you have to get it over the net still, right?
Right.
So the problem with that is that the more and more you're defensive, even though you're trying to get the ball lower, they can move you back, which now you're moving back and being more defensive versus staying on the line and being more.
Man, I thought tennis was just getting the ball over the net. There's a lot of chess and strategy in this. Okay, so you go, you decline on the red shirt.
Right. So I played, lost a lot, went from probably winning 40 to 50, 60 matches a year to losing 30, 40, 50 matches a year. And mentally, that's obviously a huge blow.
Yeah,
mentally.
dig into that, because we preach a lot on this podcast that you gotta fail to learn how to win.
Right.
But you've been winning for a while, and all of a sudden you're facing major failure.
Oh, major failure.
Yeah, like what's going on in your mind? Like what? Like,
I mean,
I equate that. For me, academically, grades were easy, and then in medical school, I think I got my first 30 on an exam, and I'm like,
yep, same thing.
What the hell is going on here? Right?
Man,
So,
it was bad because it wasn't just the tennis; it was academically as well, right? So 21 hours, not being able to really make the grades. So I failed my first class my freshman semester. I also had some issues with some of the team, and so because as not registering, they're expecting you to win.
Yeah, well,
right?
Yeah, you got to win.
And so at that point, losing a lot, then grades going down, then personal life, girlfriend breaking up with you, and wrecking my Supra. Oh, it was bad. It was like a whole when it rains it pours.
Spiral.
Oh,
yeah.
So, it was tough. It was tough to deal with.
What was your mindset at the lowest point? Or what? Man. Like you're just getting hit after hit after hit.
Well, I mean, it was
you get knocked down. Like what's going on in your head?
Oh, like, giving up was definitely a thought.
Like giving up, like all of it, or
giving
like,
up everything,
like just, depressive suicide thoughts, or
get pretty close, but not that bad.
Okay.
You have good support, some decent close friends as well. Parents obviously is number one. My mom, obviously, hugest, biggest supporter for myself.
Yeah.
My dad was busy, doing the corporate life working, and my mom took care of us.
What did they do?
So my mom was an accountant.
Okay.
So she worked for the IRS for some point, and then did her own accounting firm.
Okay.
And then my dad, chemical engineer, master in business.
Okay.
So he was at the time working more on the plant side, and then going into the business and the technology side. So
got it.
He climbed the corporate ladder pretty well, which kind of pointed me in a different direction. But that's a later part of the conversation.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So let's get back, rewind it, because again, a lot of people get into despair and desperate mindsets because of life circumstance, right? So you're getting wave after wave, a lot to take on as a 19-year-old guy, kid. What were the anchors, and like how did you bounce back from this, or what was the thought process in bouncing back?
I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, there's a little bit of wallowing in that, right? So you get into the point where you're just like, what? I don't even know how to deal with this because I've never dealt with it before.
Yeah.
So the moment you get into that, kind of go, I think the easiest thing in sports, what everybody says, is going back to the basics. What have you done well? What has made you prevail? And my mom has always been there in the sense that, like, she knew that there was going to be some point of loss, right? Some point of like negativity, some point, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you're always moving forward, that is going to be a thing of the past at some point in time. So you just got to keep pushing forward. And that's kind of how I got through it, is I did wallow for a little bit. I remember telling my dad, like, what the hell did I do wrong? Like, how is this all falling apart?
Yeah.
At one point I got kicked off the tennis team at Rice.
Because you're losing so bad, or?
Well, so I did have a mouth growing up. So
you don't lack for confidence, bro. knowing you as I know you.
Unfortunately, I didn't see eye to eye with some of the coaching. I remember I was playing at the Baylor Invitational, and I was playing a pretty important deciding match, or one of the deciding matches.
For the team.
And they left. The only person that stayed behind was one of my best friends on the team at the time. And
so the entire team left.
Food. Yeah, they went to go get food, which is, I mean, as I'm older now, I get it. At the time, I'm like, what the hell?
Like, where's the support?
Where's my support?
Yeah.
And so my coach, the assistant coach, says, hey, I heard you went for a lot of shots. Because when I start playing bad, I just go for broke. I kind of like...
It's like all in.
Kind of like
scorched earth.
when you start smacking the ball, and sometimes it's in, but most of the time it's not going to be in.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I was mentally at the time. And this is after I've already gotten to the point...
smacking the ball?
Just smacking the ball, like
just like
no
I don't
control.
Care. Yeah.
Just hitting the ball as hard as you can, not care.
Okay.
If it goes in, it goes in.
It's an anger thing. Like you're just venting. Yeah. Okay.
So I remember I said, he's like, I heard you went for a lot of your shots. I'm like, really, you watched my match? And he flipped out in front of all the coaches, all these other teams, and I got kicked off the team.
That tournament.
Oh yeah, that tournament.
Wow.
And I remember I had to write a formal letter apologizing to the Rice University athletic board, and to get back on the team and everything. So yeah.
So that's a Stark for you all listening out there.
Yeah.
Do not let your emotions get the best of you.
That's right.
Especially anger or, I
mean,
you
I wasn't even
jilted,
that mad
right?
either.
Yeah,
but
it's not even a big.
But
I get it, but I also like, okay, is it really worth? You pick and choose what hill you want to die on, right?
Yep.
So that wasn't the right hill.
Nope. And it didn't matter at the time, to be honest. It was, y'all didn't watch my match. Y'all didn't support me like we support everybody else on the team.
Yeah.
So I felt singled out, and I didn't even, like I said, I didn't really was loud about it or anything, but I definitely said it in a public setting.
Yeah.
I said, you really watched my match?
In hindsight, how would you have done it different? Would you have done it different?
I don't know if I would have, to be honest.
Yeah. Like, Coach, I need to talk to you about something, man. Can we go talk?
Yeah, I mean.
But we're not mature like that when we're 20.
No.
We're 20 foot tall and bulletproof, right?
At the time, it's hard to say that you would, because it's emotional. It's not like,
You're full of testosterone games. Yeah.
It was right after the match.
Yeah.
And I just lost in a third set breaker. It wasn't like I lost and it was like
you got blown out.
Destroyed.
Yeah.
It was close.
Yeah.
And so after that, I was just like, don't care, But obviously thinking back at it, I did have to do the apology, and I know that obviously I approached it the wrong way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, older self would have been, you probably shouldn't have done that. Younger self still probably in the moment, I probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah. Just no regrets.
Right. I mean, I don't have any regrets. I learned a lot from the mistakes you make, and that's kind of how you can move forward. So.
Okay. So advance us a little bit now. You're back on the team.
Yep. Back on the team, but still losing because it's still very weak backhand.
So not taking that red shirt year.
Yep. Hurt. Yep. Hurt a lot. Obviously in hindsight, I would have been a little bit more wise, but didn't know any better.
Okay. You're like, I'm top 5 in the country. Like, who are you to tell me to sit down?
Yeah, exactly.
For a year.
But yeah, so now I'm, thinking about it, I would have definitely redshirted a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you stayed on the team through?
Just another 6 months, and then I quit.
Really?
Yep. Quit playing tennis, all the way to the point where my girlfriend that I was dating had no idea I played tennis.
Wow, man. So let's unpeel that a little bit.
Yeah.
You've been passionate about this now for over a decade. Started at 10. About a decade. Thought you were going to go pro.
Yep. I played the biggest tournament I played the qualifying of the U.S. men's clay courts here in Houston. I got destroyed. And it's just a different class. Like once you get to that level.
What's the differentiating factor? I don't know. Yeah. They put in more time. They care about it more. They, what is it? Like, is there?
It is definitely more time. The skill level is different too. Like the ball, people say hitting a pro ball, it's not that different. Some balls could be heavier than others. Some balls not as heavy as others. But it's just the consistency. Like back then you had a few different style of players, right? You have your, serve and volleyers, you have your all-court players, you have your ground stroke guys, and you have your serve and volleyers. You have a plethora of different styles.
Yeah.
And then also on the ground stroke guys, you also have different, more aggressive and then more counter punchers. So as a junior, you call them moonballers, like people that just get the ball and knock it straight in the air. Like
it's a defensive tactic.
It's a defensive, but it works. You ask any junior player at 12, 14 years old, you got to, we call them pushers.
Yeah.
But, it is.
Well, bodies are different, uncoordinated, all this stuff. Yeah. Okay.
So
I get that.
But the difference between that is that when I started playing on the futures and stuff, it was like there was not just pushers. It's like the all-court player became the pusher, which they're not pushing anymore. They're still aggressive. They still can come to net. Nowadays, the evolution of the sport, not as much coming to the net.
Right.
Like you see some of the biggest players. I mean, they have a ball inside the baseline, they hit it, and they go back. I'm like, I've never seen that in my life when I was playing tennis.
That's crazy.
It's like you hit an approach shot style ball, you're going to the net.
Yeah.
But now they're running backwards to be able to use their strength, which is the ground stroke game.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's the difference. Like, yeah, I played Andean juniors and I had some moments, but what that didn't do anything for my college career, obviously.
Yeah.
It didn't do anything for my pro career either.
Yeah.
My prize money is negligible at best.
Okay.
But
you did have some pro experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Traveling the world.
Oh yeah. So played in Asia and Korea, played in Japan, played in all of South Central America. I mean, traveled everywhere to play. But that's what people don't tell you. It's not like, it's kind of like AAA or even AA baseball, but you're not going overseas. You have to pay, and for that is you're kind of sort of still getting paid to play. You're not getting paid anything. You're spending your own money, your own sponsors' money to play,
to get to these tournaments.
To
do something and go up the ranks.
If you don't have a ranking, so when you first start, you don't get into the tournament. You got to sign in and hope that there's not enough people that fill up the tournament so you can get into the tournament. It's like a lottery.
So you can fly to Colombia, sign up and be like, sorry, we're full.
Yep, sorry, you're not ranked. So it's a lottery after the 32 people get into the draw, or 64, however that it is in the draw, and then qualies, and you're not getting into the tournament if there are more ranked people than not.
But that's like golf though too, right? You like, there are a lot of guys paying out of their own pocket.
Well, you sign up for a tournament and then you get into the Corn Ferry, you get your card, you're getting into the tournament.
Huh. Different. So you're guaranteed a spot in golf.
Well, I mean, almost. It's the same until you get that card, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. For tennis, it's like you have to get that ranking.
Yeah. And you went pro, you played pro at what age? While at Rice, I guess?
Well, no, I left.
Right? Yeah.
So I went after. So I quit playing tennis, and then I decided to go play afterwards because a few guys were like, that I look up to, they're like, hey, how are you not playing tennis anymore? You had aspirations to go pro, and you disappeared. I was like, well, I got hurt, and then the excuses. Well,
that's a lesson here, right? That's a lesson, right? So you quit cold turkey, and then these mentor type guys are like, what happened? Yeah. So they were basically your mirror. Yeah. And
they're like, why'd you give it up? Like,
what happened?
Just because you got injured doesn't change the fact that you were one of the fastest guys on the court. You had a strong forehand, strong serve. You just need to reinvent your backhand, and you need time to do that, but don't quit. So I decided that, all right, I'll give it a shot. And so,
well, that's good.
I went and, secured a couple sponsors, but I also had a lot of help from my parents. Mm-hmm. And then went and played the future circuit and, got in a few main draws, but mostly qualifying. Everything is in qualies. Yeah. It's a tough road, and people don't realize what that grind is. I mean, it's kind of like same thing on. I think even if you don't have your full Corn Ferry card, you have kind of like you can get into some tournaments or get into the qualies. It's the same thing, but typically it's first come first serve, if I'm not mistaken. You'll get. I think in some parts it does have a ranking to get in. Like obviously if you're ranked you'll get in, but there's just so many tournaments comparative. Like
you got to get into a lot to get that ranking.
Right.
So now you're early 20s, mid 20s.
Yep.
Trying to do the pro thing.
Yep.
And when do you hang them up for good?
So 2009-ish, I soon realized, like, hey, I'm not making a career out of this. I still couldn't figure out the back end as confident as I could be. And I mean, it's funny now, like since the last time I touched a racket outside of maybe a few weeks ago, so it was like 2019. Wow. Like I didn't touch a racket for a while.
Wow.
But I quit. I left in 2009, played a couple more tournaments in end of 9. So I officially was done in 2010. I came back, started coaching, but then after that, through my coaching, I probably developed my backhand.
Damn, okay.
But obviously at this point, I'm
It's too
almost
late.
30 years old. There's no way I'm
no
playing
coming
anymore.
back.
I mean, there's only a select few players like Mark Knowles, who's 40 years old, and who's top, 5 in the world in doubles.
Yeah.
But that's doubles. You know? But you can make a career out of that, obviously.
But the window for an athlete, pro athlete, all you aspiring pro athletes out there is very small.
Yeah.
And if you waste that time.
For men, you're probably 18 to
28? 6, 7, 8, yeah.
Maybe
and that's
30.
it. Your prime competitive athletic career. So that's not a lot of time.
No. So you gotta make enough money to make it a career.
Man, do you
if
ever?
Not, you're gonna coach afterwards.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what I did.
What you did, yeah. And do you ever just think and reflect? It's like, man, if I'd only taken that red shirt year and developed the backhand.
It coulda, woulda, shoulda, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
do you regret?
Maybe. I don't know because I don't know. I just I would say that I could dwell on making that mistake, or I can,
move forward.
Keep moving forward, which is what my mom taught me. So I just keep moving forward.
Yeah. Well, I come from the same ilk. Like if it is what it is.
Yep.
And you got to keep going forward. So okay. So now let's go and translate into your real career path now, right? Mm-hmm. So you're coaching,
right?
But then you end up in hedge funds,
right?
So how does that happen, man?
Well, obviously, tennis in the States, tennis is a pretty privileged sport, right? So, I was coaching. I did the junior tennis academy over at Sugar Creek Country Club, so here in Sugar Land, and I met a lot of business people, and I just doing that for it was the easiest thing to do to make real money while going to school. Because I had to come back to go to school. Because when I quit the tennis team at Rice, I left.
I left university. Period. Yeah.
I decided to work and didn't work. So then I went and played tennis. So I didn't have really anything at the time. So I came back, was going to school, finishing up at Rice, and then I decided that tennis was the easiest way to make money. So. A good friend of mine, my brother was teaching tennis at Sugar Creek Country Club. And then I decided, hey, why don't we just build the tennis academy here? I mean, they had a junior program, but it wasn't like it was okay. I mean, maybe 15, 20 kids. But, when I got there, I was like, well, when I trained, we had 60 kids,
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to build that. So I built the academy quite well. We had quite a few. So back in the day, it was in Texas, it was regulars, which is that tournaments, and then you get to championship, and then you get super champ.
Okay.
So super champs now when you start qualifying for nationals and so forth. But there's 3 levels in junior tennis back in the day.
Got it.
So at that point, I was like, they had a couple supers, but then I was like, well, we need to get more of those. So I started really doing some work in bringing in new kids. And I've always had a great eye as far as physical motions. So not just tennis, but obviously I play a lot of golf now. But I'm able to see, even though I might not be able to physically do it myself. And on the tennis court, I can do everything.
Right.
But on golf, I wish I could say the same.
Which is harder.
Right. Well, I haven't played it long enough, so I obviously golf to me is harder at this point. But longevity-wise, tennis is definitely harder because you can't play tennis at the same level when you're 50 years old.
One's reaction and one's just hidden.
And endurance and stamina and everything.
Right.
You don't really. You just need maybe a little bit of endurance
for golf.
Yes.
So you set this academy up.
Yeah. So
successful?
I did successful there, and then just realized to make 6 figures, I got to be on the tennis court 35 hours a week.
Yeah.
I do not want to be in 115-degree heat index on the tennis court in Texas 35
hours.
Bless the people that can.
Yeah.
I cannot do that.
Right.
Not long term anyways.
Right.
So I decided that I was going to start looking for something more career driven, use my mind versus my physical ability.
Okay.
So a buddy of mine through growing up, cannabis was booming, with California not truly being legal, but being kind of legal.
Yeah.
So he was like, I'm moving to California. I want to go legit. I was like, okay, you want me to invest in what do you want from me?
Yeah.
So got into that. and lost a lot of money because it's not selling marijuana or cannabis. It's running a business. When you do it as a hustle, you don't really have expenses besides what you buy and sell it for. Right. But when you're growing it, you got a lease, you got nutrients, you got bills, you got equipment, suppliers, you got labor, you got everything. So anyways, lost a lot of money at the beginning, and one bad, harvest, you're out $60,000, $120,000 easy. Mm-hmm. So lost a lot of money. At which point, decided to kind of change, because not only was it like operationally could have a hiccup, but legislatively there was huge hiccups. Like all of a sudden they redraw the line, and now your property is illegal to grow. Yeah. So changed a lot there. So you bring up a very good point. Mm-hmm. This is your first foray into a business area you had no idea. Right. It's always been tennis. Right, exactly. Yeah, right. So what exercises, if any, did you do about like, well, man, I know nothing about this. I'm about to write a check for however much money to put it in this business. Well, I mean, it's like not knowing all the risks. Like, did you identify all these risks and be like? Well, I mean, I knew the risks. I ended up doing finance at UH downtown as well, so I knew financially what the risks were. But because it was such an emerging market, it was like, okay, well, maybe we can get out before some of these issues. Yeah, obviously didn't make that happen. And while I was doing that, that's when I first started my really my first part of the career, which is in the land hedge fund. I worked for Rock Spring Capital for Jim McAllister, he does a lot of philanthropic things here in Houston. Okay. But raised money for him, was VP of Business Development. Did pretty successfully, built up my network. I never thought I would know so many high net worth people in my life. Yeah. Coming from a pretty humble, beginning with, mom just in accounting. How did you land that job? Just ended up being a friend when I was doing finance at UH downtown. They went to do this workout. He does these workouts at his house, and he was like, "Hey, don't you know a lot of wealthy athletes?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, I know them from playing tennis." But so that's kind of how I got in. Did an interview. My interview was hilarious because I didn't own a suit anymore. My last suit I wore coming back from tennis was my high school prom suit. So I literally called all my friends, tried to figure out, can I borrow a suit? Can I do this? Couldn't find anything. So I literally safety pinned that suit together and went to this interview and got the job. That's fantastic, man. So you go from hedge fund, what was it called? A land? So, I mean, it's a investment fund, into real estate and land. Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. Go from that to then turned out to one of the kids that I used to coach. Her father or stepfather was helping manage some micro cap public companies. So he's like, "Hey, I know you're invested in the cannabis side," because I was doing it on the side. Yeah. We want to bring this company from a health wellness supplement to a cannabis company. So there's really no such thing, but kind of such thing as a medical marijuana index. Yeah. So we were one of the first companies on there. Okay. So when you say, for those of you all in the audience, a micro cap public company is sub 50 million market cap value of a company, but it's traded publicly. Right. And so you became a manager of one of those, or CEO? Right. So I originally got brought in as executive management help, just to kind of help them transition. And then 2 seconds later, figuratively, the CEO was retiring from cancer. So after that, they were like, "Well, you're going to stand in as interim CEO." And I was like, "Wait, what? I don't know how to do any of it. I don't know how to do any of the filings. Yeah. I don't know how to do any of this. Yeah. I can learn, but it's going to take some time. Yeah. So that's what I had to do. Stock might take a hit, right? Okay, yeah. And it didn't, because we were going into a new emerging market, which was cannabis on public, the publicly traded cannabis companies. So it really didn't take that big of a hit. Yeah. But, learned a lot, learned how to do the filings, learned what regulatory bodies, what we need is, to satisfy. Very familiar with M&A, because we were more on the fund side. So we would buy companies or do joint ventures with companies, try to do what we really thought was best for the company and its shareholders. So did that for a little while. And then after that, the microcap pub space, the funding dried up pretty quick because of some legislation changes during Obama's term that basically made it difficult, or seemed like it made it difficult for investors to deposit their stock. So, well, when the investors can't make their money back, they're not giving you any money.
Yeah.
So at that point, one of the small businesses that we were doing was a antimicrobial coating that was an organosilane that basically you treat a surface and it can remain bacteria free for like up to 90 days.
I see that a lot in medical device products. Yep.
Right. So so at that point, my uncle out of Dallas, they have a custodial service business. He's like, well, why don't you just, instead of selling that product, open the custodial service business here in Houston, and you own and operate 100% of down here, and then you can sell your products and services doing that. So I did that. So got to the point where we were actually contracted to clean City of Sugar Land, Lamarck, Alvin.
Oh, wait a minute. So you go from interim CEO of a publicly traded company, which you still are, you leave?
Oh, I left.
Okay, you left.
Yeah, I left.
To starting up a custodial janitorial business, cleaning office buildings for governments and cities.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So did that, and then
what are these transitions like? You just
it's brutal.
It's just like a one day. Okay, I'm gonna go do this instead, or like kind of like let me plan and let me think about it. Like how does that go through that thought process?
Famous Bruce Lee saying is "Be like water."
Yeah.
So my environment changed. I had to change with it.
Okay.
Because I didn't have any funding to keep moving with the Pubco side, so I decided to leave and take one of the things that I learned with the organosilanes, antimicrobial coating, and do the clinical not the clinical, but the cleaning services.
Yeah.
But
that was successful. Yeah.
That was a huge learning curve.
Yeah.
And the reason why is, historically in Texas, a lot of the janitorial services are done by the Hispanic community, and I don't know that many Hispanics.
Yeah.
Not just never crossed paths, right? So I didn't have the workforce, and in order to have a business like that, you have to have the workforce.
Yes.
So learn from my uncle in Dallas, and he was able to kind of shed some light on how to gain employees with in this work area, because my hedge fund business, I'm talking all CEOs, business owners, high net worth individuals. So I had nothing on the, blue collar labor side.
Right.
I didn't know anybody.
Right.
So I was able to be pretty successful with that. Like I said, we gained quite a few contracts in a short time, following a model and being a pretty good networker.
Yeah.
So then after that, COVID hit.
So no one's going to the office anymore anyways.
People are going to the office for the state. People are going to the office or the city.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Nobody's working. Nobody wants to get paid because there's no staff. So guess what? We had to put the big boy pants on and go clean toilets. You better believe it.
Okay.
Go clean toilets.
All right, man.
1:00 in the morning.
No, I used to be rubbing elbows with CEOs, but now I'm scrubbing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pouring my stuff and scrubbing.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that. Somebody's got to do it.
Yep.
But your psyche, your ego, kind of what you're just like, it has to get done, so I don't care.
I mean, I don't think there's really anything beneath me. If I have to do something, for the business, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I was the owner. I had the responsibility. So if the employee didn't show up, who's going to do it?
Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
You had to do it.
Yeah. So I've never had that that thought of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. I mean, thinking back, I'm like, thinking back, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did it. But like,
nastiest thing you found in the toilet, bro.
Oh, you don't even want to know.
It's like that.
I didn't find it. My brother found it.
Ooh.
It was a fetus.
No. Wow.
At a public library.
Wow. Did you report it, cops?
Of course.
Yeah, of course you got to do it, right?
Yeah.
Wow, dude.
Yeah. So talking about life experiences, right?
Yeah. Holy cow. Well, at least you had your brother in the business too.
Yeah. He helped.
Support.
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely.
But man, it's one of those things where, like in my business, it's you never ask somebody to do something you wouldn't be willing to do yourself.
Yep.
Right? Because you're the owner. So if you're asking people to clean toilets, you got to be able to be willing to do it yourself. And
that's right.
Not finding dead fetuses in the toilet, but damn. That's crazy. Okay, so now, you go through that business. Why wind that down? I mean, it's, you know.
So because, like I said, during COVID, none of the workforce wanted to work. Everybody was getting more money, not working. So obviously, we're a business that's satisfied government buildings.
Yeah.
So there was no paying cash. There was none of that. So you couldn't find people that would just do it on the side.
Yeah.
So at that point, started to lose contracts because you don't have a workforce.
Yeah.
So luckily around this time, right before that really is the Farm Bill passed, which is in 2018. So I kind of, was making a transition back to cannabis, but not medical cannabis, more on the hemp side.
Got it.
So in 2018, during Trump's term, the freedom of cash flow with investors started to come back.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, well, I don't want to be in California. I'm going to do this here. So we had built I was getting back into the hemp side of the business, doing a lot of brokering for hemp flour and biomass and so forth, and distillates and stuff.
Okay.
And then
so you're buying, selling.
So just brokering.
Stock. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
And so at some point, one of the control block holders of one of the companies that I used to work with, which was NutriCorp, they said, "Hey, come back." What do you mean come back? What am I going to do? I mean, I was like, I've been working on stuff, but this was completely not from Nutra.
Right. So Nutra, just to clarify for the audience, is a micro-cap
public company.
Public company that you are now chairman or
now I'm president and COO.
President and COO.
That's correct.
Okay. So the ticker is
NTRR.
NTRR.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a sub-penny company, but we have a lot of carrots in there if you guys take a look into
obviously
research,
because it's publicly traded and what you disclose matters.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Be cautious on what you say on the podcast. But but the shareholders or the board or whatever says, come on back, help us run this.
Yeah, just help us bring this back because it was a good company until we kind of got the short end of the stick in their eyes. So I said, well, I'm not going to put the stuff that I'm going to been working on this last 3 years that I haven't been part of the company into it without a sense of control, like actual control in the business.
Yeah.
So
talking about the hemp.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Right. So initially we launched a hemp facility in Katy. So we manufacture consumer products from gummies to lotions, massage oils, tinctures, any of the consumable hemp-based products.
And that brand is called?
Vivus.
Vivus.
VIVIS.
Okay, so these are products people can buy through the website, through your website.
VivusCBD.com or VivusCorp.com.
So one more time?
VIVISCORP.com.
VIVISCORP.com.
Yeah.
Got it. You can buy any of these products.
Yep, you can buy any of the products. So that's what we initially did. COVID obviously was tough building the facility because all the equipment, everything got held up at customs and all sorts of stuff. So instead of taking what we thought was going to be projected 6 months, it took 1.5 years to build the facility almost.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So facility's still going. We've because of certain rules and legislation, we have started manufacturing alternative where we already had started making alternative cannabinoids like your Delta 8s and all the other alternatives, THCA and some of the others. But through that cannabis side, so the whole start of being into cannabis is at 12 years old, I was on an Advil regimen as an athlete. So my hope was being able to bring an all-natural solution to dealing with pain
soreness, joint
as an
pain.
athlete.
Yes, got it.
Right? So that's why I originally got into the hemp side.
Got it.
And so when we launched this, we were really hoping to take off because we knew we made a great quality product.
Yeah.
I don't know one person that has taken our product and was like,
You have NFL players and pro athletes using your stuff right now.
That's right. We do.
Yeah.
And so after kind of getting into that, we wanted to start really looking into doing the research, because if you look out there, there's a lot of PK studies and stuff like that, but there's no
PK is pharmacokinetic,
right,
which is how the drug works in your body.
Right.
Okay.
So there's only a couple companies that have gone full pharmaceutical with it, like GW Pharma, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but we wanted to start potentially doing research into it, and that's how I got into the research side of the business.
Okay, so so now NutriCorp president and CEO,
right,
bringing his hemp knowledge in, wants to get into research, meaning what? Research clinical trials?
Clinical trials, so proving the fact that hemp products can work for, pain or what. There's obviously there's a lot of different, benefits, right? Like the GW Pharma is for epilepsy, right?
Right.
So being able to prove that, the issue with that, and the reason why there's so much money that goes into doing the pharmaceutical trials, but the problem is once you get CBD, the main compound, once you get that, then everybody has that. Right.
There's nothing proprietary.
There's nothing proprietary about it. So it's hard for people to spend the money on the clinical trials to do that. But in looking at it, I gained the insight on clinical research in a total, like the actual industry-sponsored clinical research that gets the FDA approval for vaccines, treatments, lab tests, everything, diagnostic tools, everything. So once I got into that, it really took I really took a liking to it. And started to grow a passion, and that's kind of the second part of the business. We got into running clinical trials at clinical sites. So.
Okay, so to clarify, let's say I don't know, name a drug company, Pfizer.
Right.
Obviously, Pfizer's been in the news as of late. They develop a drug.
Right.
And they need it to test it on people.
Right.
To get the data to submit the drug to the FDA for approval.
That's correct.
And so they would hire third-party companies such as NutriCorp to enroll patients, find doctors, to conduct the study.
Correct.
Phase 3, what we would call it.
With phase 1 to phase 4.
Phase 4, clinical trials.
Right.
And then they can submit the data, and they will pay you for this.
That's correct.
Okay. Pfizer, the drug company, will pay you for it. So this is a vertical. I think you had a press release maybe a week ago that you piloted a program like this and was very successful with it. Right.
So we had a pilot program, ran out of a pediatric practice in Richmond area, did fairly well. And then we decided to full launch the program in February.
Okay.
So we have Nutra Life Sciences, which is the site management organization arm of NutriCorp.
Okay.
So it's a wholly owned subsidiary by NutriCorp.
Okay.
And that using Nutra Life Sciences, we partner with not pediatrics only, but private practices in the medical community to run clinical trials or be the clinical trial arm or clinical research arm of that practice.
Got it.
In the Houston area so far.
Got it. So right now, to grow this business, you will have to recruit more private practice physicians.
Right.
Coincidingly, sign up more contracts with pharmaceutical companies to run clinical trials.
Right.
And some of these contracts could be like what value? I mean, I know. I just want to let the audience know.
Well, I mean, it can go from 10,000 to millions.
Yeah.
I mean,
for the whole study.
For the whole study, correct.
Wow. That's good.
Yep.
It's a good place to be, man.
Yeah, worked hard to get here.
So here we are. You're how old?
I'm about to be 42.
42, CEO of a publicly traded company, microcap, of course, growing. Yep. A varied history from a career, from a hedge fund to venture capital to public, company to janitorial services, scrubbing toilets to here. And what I'm hearing through your life story is that tennis brought this to you a lot, right? Tennis kind of got you the first, your segue into your academy, which found clients that got you the hedge fund deal, which then another client got you another deal. So what's the takeaway on that regard for you as you reflect on where you've been so far in your young 42 years?
It's kind of interesting. Like, I don't remember exactly where I read this, but I remember sometime, like when I had the falling apart in college.
Yeah.
I was like, why am I so unlucky? And I remember reading something, and it was like, luck is only being able to be ready for the opportunity given to you.
Correct.
So if you're not ready for something, you would say that, oh, I'm unlucky because I didn't get the deal. Right? So, oh, why is it such bad luck? Why didn't I get this? But if you're ready for it, you probably would have got it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So my ability to be able to position myself for opportunity has been more positive than negative. So what I've strived on is being able to set myself in the position to where I'm ready if there's a good opportunity.
Got it. Well, I preach all the time on the podcast is, success is preparation meeting opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If you're prepared, then any opportunity, but if you're unprepared, the opportunity rolls by, and then you would say, I'm never successful, never lucky, right? But people view being successful as being lucky,
right?
But it's actually being prepared when the opportunity comes.
Right.
Okay, so tennis brought that world to you in a way where you're coaching somebody's daughter, but then you're realizing that the father is a connected CEO somewhere, and so you're in the moment with an opportunity.
Right.
And it's just a repeated practice that has led you throughout the course of your life. Yeah.
Yep.
And then the second part is, like you said, Bruce Lee said, be like water, the ability to just adapt and flow into whatever opportunity. Is that again, a learned thing? A lot of people struggle through this podcast in understanding, okay, are entrepreneurs built? Or are they bred? Are they taught, or is it just innate? Like just people out there wanting to start their own business, but I don't have what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Like what is your viewpoint on that?
I think it's both. I don't think it's one way or another, because you can learn all the skills you want, but some people don't like talking to people, right? If you don't have that, you
can't be an entrepreneur.
You can't be an entrepreneur, right? Yeah. So I mean, part of your soft skills, absolutely, like you're born with it. You either can talk to people, or you can't talk to people, or you are more quiet, you're more boastful. All those things, those aren't really learned skills. Those are skills of your environment, of your upbringing, right? But the skills like being patient, understanding that there's other ways to get things done, those are learned skills, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it definitely you have to have the secret sauce. You got to have both.
Yeah.
You can't have one and not the other. It just doesn't. You can be. I'm not saying that you can't be successful. You can be, but in a different light.
Got it. And so, and then the last thing I hear throughout your stories is this underlying level of supreme self-reliant confidence.
Yeah.
Right. Like, well, I'll give it. It's kind of. I'm the same way. I'll give it a shot. Because I know I'll survive this.
Right.
Where does that come from? Is that also you're born with that? It was taught.
Oh, it's taught.
You can acquire it. This just
it's taught from a young age.
I can handle whatever. So therefore, I can risk whatever, and the higher the risk, the higher the reward.
So, I think the higher the risk, the higher the reward. That's not something really learned. That's something. Some people are risk adverse.
From
the get go.
Yeah,
and you could, and doctors typically are one of those,
yes,
right?
Very much so.
So I don't think that is a learned ability. You're either going to lean one way or the other as far as risk profile.
Okay. But supreme confidence.
But the confidence side, that stuff is a learned ability through environment.
Learned ability of environment, or is it a learned ability through?
Well, environment like parents.
Well,
friends,
parents,
everything.
repeated failures,
Right.
but able to pick yourself up.
Right.
Right. You build more resiliency, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Right. So you've got a long path ahead of you still.
Yep.
Where does it go from here? What do you envision it going from here?
Well, being kind of new in this industry, I've found myself in a pretty great opportunistic position. So what I would love to do is really build this business to something that can leave a mark, not just on the corporate world, but when we have this clinical research, but we're touching people's lives directly.
Yeah.
Because it's non-discriminatory. You don't have to have insurance. You're touching people's lives, being able to potentially provide them a vaccine that can help them health-wise. Or even more so, it's not necessarily enrolling a patient. It's educating them so they can make the best decision for their own health, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's where it's at, because there's so much misinformation about how trials are run. And I hate to say it, but obviously through COVID, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And that has put a good tarnish on this industry. But the amount of safety protocol within these clinical protocols, they're significant.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not just like, I give you an example. We're not just going to run a pediatric trial because we thought this vaccine is going to be better.
Yeah.
It's probably already approved for adults, which in most cases are. And now it's called an age de-escalation. So approved for adults, FDA approved for adults, so it's safe. Then they have to figure out dosage for the
pediatric.
Younger,
okay.
And it doesn't just go from having, a 30-year-old adult to a 2-year-old or a 2-month-old. It literally goes from, your adolescent to your,
toddler,
grade school,
to
your, toddler, then to your infant, and then to, so it is. And then even still, then they have the women studies side where they're doing the vaccine for the mom and see if it passes down to the baby,
the fetus. Yeah.
Right. So there's a whole progression. It's not just, we thought we were going to
shotgun and throw it out there. Yeah.
I mean, and that's the tough part you see is that that's what people think. It's like, COVID, nobody did any research.
Yeah.
mRNA is new.
Yeah.
It's not new.
Yeah.
mRNA has been around forever.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing though, and a strong takeaway is that you say you're really affecting and touching people's lives, right? From a health standpoint.
Absolutely.
And you weren't saying, I want to build this to $1 billion company, and money has nothing or value has nothing to do with it, which I preach all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The process is what matters. The mission is what matters. And if you focus on, like my law firm, we're just changing lives.
Mm-hmm.
And if you focus on that, the money is going to come.
Yeah.
Right? And the whole misnomer in the entrepreneurial world is I got to make bank any way possible. But to make true wealth is focusing on
the purpose.
On the purpose,
yeah,
which is ultimately helping other people or solving a problem.
Absolutely.
Right. So in that regard now, to just kind of bring this full circle, kind of words of wisdom to those out there struggling to find a path, trying to find their purpose. New administration, things are, going at super high speed, technology, advanced, like just kind of through your life experience, what would you like to share with the audience?
I mean, really don't discount something you don't know about. So what I would say is that especially for the younger generation, it's tough because schooling is not necessarily the most, popular choice nowadays, but you won't know unless you do it. So don't shortchange yourself by not experiencing something that could potentially you will like because you think you might not like it. Unless you've done it, you don't know for sure.
Yeah.
So I think that is one of the things that I would say for the younger generation is you got to try it. Don't knock it till you try it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what lessons, one thing we kind of glossed over is like just the grind of being an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And I experienced this vicariously through Nate, Division I basketball player. The grind of and the monotony of doing just the same shit 3 to 4 hours a night for 6 nights in a row at 10 years old. How did that translate into the real world for you?
Oh man, I mean, nothing comes easy. You put in the work or you don't put in the work. Some people can get lucky or born into it, but if you're a self-starter like myself, and like you literally have to put in the work. You can't. There's no shortcuts.
You got to put the brush to the toilet, man.
The moment you get to a point where there's a little bit of controversy or a little bit of pushback on something that you're doing, if you don't have the grind to do it or you've not done it before, the chances of you failing is a lot higher.
Yeah.
So
you just got to put in the work.
You got to put in the work.
That's crazy, man. You know, going to your previous point about you don't know till you try it.
Mm-hmm.
It you know, we're applying that to career paths in life, but it goes back to, you know, I'll give an example with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll present her with some food and she's like, I'm not going to like it. Well, how do you know until you taste it?
Yep.
How do you know until you try it? And that's what you're saying in life is you gotta see.
Yeah.
And explore, and you might find that passion in something you thought you wouldn't like.
Yeah.
But then you like.
Oh yeah. I mean, a lot of my friends they'll tell me I'm probably have the most interesting hobbies. and it's because I like trying a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, snowboarding, car racing, motorcycle racing, flying. Yeah. I've tried all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, I've been able to get, and obviously some of them are expensive hobbies.
Yeah.
But you know, it's worth giving it a shot to try.
It's the zest of life, man.
Yeah.
And you create the opportunities out of that. Man, what a great story you got.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for sharing that to us and to our audience. A lot of lessons, a lot of pearls to get out there, to get from this episode. I do this with all my guests that come on board. We got a end-to-end hat for you.
Oh yeah, appreciate it.
Wear that next time on the golf course or whenever you pick up a racket next. What a thrill to have you on here, man.
Hey,
Syd,
thank you so
Jim,
much. Yeah.
Where can people find you? So NutriCorp ticker is
so NutriCorp ticker is NTRR.
NTRR dot.
It is an OTC company. Right now, our website is nutrainc.com, and then is
NUTRA Inc.
NEUTRAINC.com.
Okay.
That's NEUTRAINC.com, and then Neutral Life Sciences is the clinical research arm, which is the site management organization, and that's NEUTRALIFESCIENCES.com.
I feel like a spelling bee.
Yeah,
and don't forget Vivus for the hemp product.
Oh yeah, Vivus Corp, VIVISCORP.
Okay, and people want to follow you in your Porsche Turbo. Where would they find you, bro?
That would be Syd Jim at Syd Jim on Instagram.
Syd with the SYD.
SYD, that's
SYD
right.
Jim.
SYDJIM.
Yeah, great to have you, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
If you learned something from this episode, please do share, like, comment. I'm sure you did through Syd's life experience. There's a lot of lessons to be learned here. Nothing ever goes in a straight line like you expect it, but you got to flow like water and be ready for the opportunity when it presents itself. If you learned anything from the show, if your knowledge swole, please do share the show. That's how we grow. I close my episodes as I close every day, which is when I lay down, close my eyes, ready to go to sleep. I always thank God and the universe for another opportunity to hopefully have inspired somebody and hopefully have done my mission and my purpose, which, you know, is designed for me. So with that, I want to thank you all for listening. Looking forward to bringing you another episode very, very soon. Go visit cureconnector.com, PFASinjuryattorney.com, and LegacyXToken.com as well. Don't leave me with that karmic imbalance and a karmic debt to me. Share the show or support the project, support Syd's company, and we'll look forward to bringing you another episode. Thank you very much.